Deutschland, with its beautiful green lands, forests, and its picturesque villages, was so boring for Jasmine that if it weren't for the army post, she would certainly have moved back to Detroit almost immediately. The biggest negative about the village where she lived was the xenophobic people that lived there. In Bad Kursfield, it seemed to Jasmine that the little children knew at least three words by the age of two: Mama, Papa, and the one word that made Jasmine cringe: Nega. Nega was the German version of nigger. The children would sometimes stop and stare, oftentimes in a trance, at Jasmine as she shopped along the cobblestone streets of the village. And not a time would go by that some little pig faced child would not point and call Jasmine that vile name. And the parent, who was usually right there standing beside the child, would smile and nod their heads in agreement, as if the child had correctly named the elephant at an outing at the zoo. Jasmine had to admit that this learned ignorance was more prevalent in the smaller villages than in the bigger cities she'd visited over the past few months. Jasmine guessed it was probably the same in small town America, but Jasmine was from Detroit. They didn't play that shit there. At least most Americans, white folks, at least most American white folks knew not to use the N word around the people they labeled it with, unless, that is, they had a death wish. Jasmine had learned about Germany mostly through Holocaust movies and television shows. And now that Jasmine was actually living in the country in 1991, she had surmised that Deutschland had to be one of the top three most xenophobic countries on the face of the earth, maybe running a close second to Israel. That's why the 103rd Division of Bad Hersfeld was so important to Jasmine. A little over a year ago, while trying to gain access to the army base from some big Jethro named Private Hatcher, Mrs. Virgis Alexander, the rotund and jovial wife of Colonel Solomon Alexander, happened upon Jasmine's situation and recognized her. The colonel, who Jasmine met later, and Mrs. Alexander were the royal couple of the 103rd Division, and Her Royal Highness Virgis was a big fan of Greater Mount Carmel Baptist Church's choir. She confessed to having all three albums, and she used three of the arrangements from the albums for the church choir on the post. Virgil had assisted Jasmine call her by her first name and was like an angel to Jasmine. The first day of their chance meeting, she persuaded Jasmine to come to her choir rehearsal. Jasmine was so moved by the choir's rendition of Peace Be Still that she later described the incident to Persephone in a letter. She wrote that she was crying and slanging snot like somebody had died up in there. Jasmine unofficially joined the choir and started to attend Sunday devotion at the small chapel that Virgis explained was time shared with the other denominations on post. Eventually, Virgis persuaded the colonel to make a special provision so that Jasmine could obtain a military identification card with civilian status, which would give her full access to the military post and all the perks that entailed. A military ID card also meant a ration card, which gave her access to purchase cigarettes. Jasmine had quit 4 years ago, but bought a carton each month for Fredo, which was close to 5 marks per pack in the German economy. She was allowed rations for coffee, though Jasmine never acquired a taste for it, and liquor, which she exhausted the rations for each month, buying 4 half-gallon bottles for Fredo. Chapette had the current movies on the videotape to rent. The PX was like a big Kmart and even had Jasmine's much needed African American hair care products. And with one of the military wives braiding her hair every 2.5 months, Jasmine was fitting in comfortably in Deutschland. Jasmine also discovered that men really did look good in uniforms, and many a soldier was in hot pursuit of her. Some even attended church more often to try to get next to the fine young thing on Bed Kursville's post. It was rumored that Jasmine was a Jehovah's Witness, but most men treated her like a princess and with the utmost respect. Of course, there were the wolves, but they all proved to be harmless. Jasmine had made up her mind to stay focused, and getting involved with some soldier could only cloud her focus at this time. Not that she wasn't tempted, there were some fine young single brothers that had caught Jasmine's eye on more than one occasion, but the single guys were usually passing around the local German women that frequented the NCO club. If it was Jasmine's own little slice of America. Then came news from the colonel that the Bush administration planned to close Bad Kursfield, along with hundreds of other military posts in Europe. Since the Berlin Wall had come down in '89 and communism had ended in East Germany, America agreed that the Cold War was over and put into motion plans to downsize the military in Europe. The colonel told Burgess that Bathurstfield was at the top of the Pentagon's list for their second phase of base closings. Burgess said it was still signed and settled, and there was nothing short of a Russian war against Germany that anyone could do about it. This made Jasmine rethink what she might do if the base closed. Bathurstfield was hours away from the bigger cities of Cologne, Dusseldorf, and Munich. Frankfurt was a little over an hour if Jasmine was driving, but Marcus was based there and Jasmine wanted to remain far away from his reach. She knew a move was necessary, but she had no idea how she would be able to afford a bigger city with the 4,873 marks that she had stashed away in a savings account on post. That amount had come from the $3,000 worth of traveler's checks she had brought over from America with her. It was evident after their last big meeting that Marcus wasn't prepared to do the right thing by her. At that meeting, Marcus had presented her with a long list of expenses. He'd kept a tally of he'd kept a tally of since her arrival. He even included her air travel expenses and 3 days at a hotel in the bill. Jasmine pointed out to Marcus that he owed her money because of all the studio time she put in with him and Jim. She also made note she also made note of the fact that Marcus would send Jasmine out to other studios like a piece of equipment, and Marcus would pay her cash, 800 marks, and the studio would pay Marcus with a check. He was pimping her. Jim, the sound man, was the one who called Jasmine up and told her what Marcus was doing. Otherwise, she probably just gone along with things as they were. When she learned that Marcus had sold a commercial jingle featuring her voice and had made a dance music single that he was shopping around to record to record companies, Jasmine was furious. Their meeting had ended in a stalemate. Jasmine, although not sure how at the time, had decided she needed to make a move fast. Jim had pretty much decided the same. He had been shopping himself around to other studios, also wanting to break free of Marcus and his slave wages, and had sent a dance music demo to Wolfgang that demonstrated his talent as a sound mixer. The tune featured Jasmine's voice, and Wolfgang bribed Jim and for Jasmine's phone number.